That's one anyway, because otherwise, farm will come up on the bottom.
Okay, we're live now. Everybody shut up. Okay, welcome. My name is Kim. This is my design studio. I'm with Lolco Design Studio. It's a 6,200 square foot studio in Ann Arbor, Michigan that is open to the public 7 days a week to either come and use the tools and materials and everything we have here to make their own stuff, or they can come and pay professional to make it for them. So we are here today on the second week of how to reupholster an Eames chair replica. The last time we met here for this chair, we took everything apart. We cleaned off all of the wood with acetone and we were preparing it for stain and top coat. Today, we're going to work on stripping the chair, which I've done much of this. You guys don't want to watch the whole thing, so I've kind of done this magical television technique to kind of walk you guys through it quickly. Today, we're going to show you how to strip the chair, how to measure and cut like foam and batting, and then how to apply it. And then we're going to go back over to the wood parts. I'm going to show you how I applied the stain and the top coat to the last piece that's there. So if you have questions, put them in the comments. I can't see the comment section like all of the time, so I will try to stop at intervals and answer your questions. Anything that you might be curious about, go ahead and put in there, and we will try and go over those a little bit later so that I can get those answered for you. Even if I can't answer them live here, I'll be able to check those comments and answer them live. I'll reach out to you personally and answer that question for you. So what we have here are the 4 panels of upholstered parts that came off of the Eames chair. We've got the headrest, the backrest, the seat, and the ottoman, and the armrests. So these are the only upholstered parts, and the cool part about them is that they come completely off, so you can upholster them independently of each other. Today we're going to work on stripping. So I'm going to kind of go over the tools that we're going to need to do that. All right. You're going to be so incredibly shocked at how easy this particular project is to do. So the tools I need to strip this are a razor blade with some spare blades. I've already swapped them out, so we probably won't have to use that today. A staple remover. This is my favorite staple remover to use. It's a CS Osborne 120. I carry these on my website. And then a pair of pliers in case the staples get stuck. That's all we're going to need to strip it. So I'm going to start off by cutting around where the staples are to remove the bulk of the material that's attached to it away from the row of staples that's there, so that possibly the staples might be a little bit easier to remove. I'm just going to switch this to the overhead view so you guys can get a close up of that. Should say overhead. There you go. And then I'm just pull this in, and then you can zoom. Perfect. Okay. So you can try and move these staples individually. Let me go over that first to kind of show you how to do that. This is a specialized tool. It's ambidextrous, and it is designed to take the impact off of your body. Upholstery can be really hard on your hands, your elbows, your shoulders, your knees, your feet, your back, your chest. All of the muscles that you use to do all the activities of upholstery, those can take a toll. So staple removal, arguably the most laborious part of the process. The more you can find ways to make it easier, the more pleasurable the experience becomes. When you're removing staples, it's very common for people to come at it from the side, which on this, there's a piece of wood there. If this were show wood and this slipped, it's going to scratch that wood. But if your hand was there, potentially you're going to be slipping and stabbing yourself in the hand. That is a very common injury. When I remove staples, if I don't have the alternative to remove them quickly, like I'm about to show you, I like to stand the staple remover up so that it's coming at the staple straight up and down, right next to it. Let me see how close I can get. So right next to the staple. stand it up, and then poke that sharp bit in. This very fragile piece of wood. Poke the sharp bit of the staple remover into the wood till you can feel it go into the wood, and then you just slowly turn it and move it down. That is going to lift the staple out easily without endangering yourself by stabbing yourself. So you can go through and remove these. These are actually coming out pretty easily one by one like this, but everyone is always looking for alternate methods of removing staples that are faster. In the event that you get a staple that doesn't come out all by itself, you can just grab it with pliers and twist it like that. I always do the twist method and not the pull method, because the pull method can hurt your elbow, it can hurt your shoulder, it can hurt your chest. I always do the twist method. So if you're looking to get this stripped very quickly, and then this project in particular is really easy to strip because the wood is only about 1/8 of an inch thick. So the staples come out really easy from here. So this is what I suggest you do. First, remove all of the fabric with a razor that's attached to the row of staples. Here's what I mean by that. I'm just going around here. Let me swap my blade out. If your blade is not sharp, it won't cut through your fabric. You don't want it to fray. You want it to cut through neatly. I'm just going to go around here and cut around the outer edge of these staples. Until I come back to the other side. Then I can remove this whole bit off. It's not going to cause me any trouble trying to remove the staples. If I try to do what I'm about to show you in a second with all the fabric still on, all of the fabric is going to give you resistance and not going to allow you to do this very quickly. So this is the first important step. I'm just finished getting through this fabric. Okay, so now I've got this removed. At this stage, you're going to wonder, should I save the material to make a pattern? And in almost every case, I tell the students, absolutely not. Because this material had extra material on it to be able to stretch it and upholster it. And then it was trimmed off after it was upholstered so that it would look clean and neat on the... In this case, I might suggest you just save the top part of this because it's sewn, it's tailored to fit. But this is a pattern you can also make after it's constructed as well. We're not going to save any of this. We're going to make a brand new pattern for this. And then the foam is going to come off too. This is just applied with a couple of staples. Get that off. We've got some anatomy here I can go over with you so that you know what it is that you're looking at. Now this particular part of the arm has got like some 1-inch foam on it. It's got some cotton batting under here that is also stapled on. And then right around the edge here, it has an edge roll. That is protects the sharp edge of the wood from rubbing up against your fabric, but it can also help to create this like rollover shape, which for the outside of the arm is necessary, whereas the inside of the arm is flat up on the inside of the chair, so you can't really see it. So now we still, it looks like we've stripped it completely, but we left all of the actual work. That's what's going on right here. So now we can come in with our pliers, giving myself an opening, and just twist this material all the way around. If we're lucky, it will take the staples out with it. Bare minimum, here we go. You can see some staples in here. It'll lift the staple so that we can get our tools underneath it. So this has taken out some staples with it. The staples that got left behind are sticking up a little bit more, so I can go up there and remove them easier. Now this is a much thicker wood than the seat, so you guys will be shocked to find out how much easier the rest of this is going to be to strip. But let's get in here and remove the rest of this. So again, I'm just using this curling iron technique to twist up the row of staples kind of all at once. And I'm not going to spend 2 hours pulling staples with you guys. I pulled the staples on 90% of this project already. But we will go through the arm and then this next headpiece just so you can kind of see how easy it is. If you've ever seen one of these chairs thrashed on the internet and going for cheap because it's thrashed, buy it. Because it is worth the investment. Everybody loves these. They sell very quickly. Mine sold within 2 hours of posting it as a restoration piece. And it's a replica. So it's made exactly the same way, except for the parts on the back are wood, not metal. And it's made with the same quality materials. So it will look, feel exactly the same. Okay, so now we've got all the fabric out, but we still got a ton of staples. So I'm just going to come through here with my staple remover. All of these are lifted already, so I can just fit it up underneath and twist these out. Sometimes it'll take it out all the way. Sometimes not so much. I always recommend that you go slow because slow is pro. If you go too fast, these tiny little staples can break, and then you're looking at taking out 2 sides of the staple after you get it lifted. So go slow. You don't have to go super fast. I know you're eager to get through this part, but if you go too fast, you're going to end up going 3 times slower. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm going to go through where this cardboard tape is, which this cardboard tack strip was put down to flatten, I imagine, what is going on with the edge roll, which if the edge roll gets damaged, we can replace. We need some little mix in here. Let's come at it. I can't get at it from the other way because I can't get leverage with my stapler. So right now I'm just lifting all of these so that my pliers can grab it because it's not coming out all the way by itself. Okay, that's all of the staples on this side. Now I'm going to grab my pliers and I'm just going to come through here and twist out the rest of that staple. Now, your tool will magnetize itself as you do this, so the staples start sticking to your pliers or your staple remover. I just like tap it on my hip or the table, whatever's close, and then get that out. People will always say, do you need to remove every single staple? And the short answer to that is yes. Especially if you're doing client work, there is a finite number of staples that your wood can hold before it starts to split, and you don't want to put it at risk. But when you're just starting this, and it's for yourself and it's not for a client, any staple that is flat and not holding down any foam or batting or lumpy stuff, and it's in the wood, you can just leave, especially if it's going to get covered up by another row of staples. I would say if there's staples in a cluster that you should take those out because that's going to just create damage to that area if you keep adding to it. But a lot of times, a lot of these staples can get left in there when you're practicing to just get you to the next step so that you can build a little bit of confidence about your project. I'm not over here judging you for not removing all your staples, but you will find that sometimes if you don't, you're going to run into trouble later on down the road. So that's the edge roll. So, the cardboard was part of the edge roll itself. I'm going to hold on to this because it's still in good shape. I'm going to come back through here and get these staples out. And then there are a few on the front that I need to get as well, that we will tackle as soon as we get this side out. Again, I'm just lifting and going through and lifting up every single staple. I find this a difficult task to do with carpal tunnel or arthritis. So if you have someone able and willing at home, I would suggest you pay them to do it for you because it can take its toll on your hands, which is why we've gotten this down to just removing a few staples in front of you guys because I physically just cannot do it anymore. My hands are already in pain. And that's kind of the problem in this industry right now, is everyone is aging out of the business. This does take a toll on your body. And there's the U.S. Government website of labor and statistics says that there are just under 30,000 upholsterers in all of the United States. The average age is between 55 and 65, and 22,000 are expected to retire in the next 10 years, which means that there's going to be less than 10,000 upholsterers out there in the next 10 years, which can be sad. It can be a way that we completely lose the ability to do this effectively as a business. But it also means that it's the Wild West and it's completely open market for people who want to make money. And I promise you can make money doing this while you're learning. We have a whole program about it here at the studio called the Sponsor Student Program. And that's where clients can pay for the cost of materials and classes, which is significantly less than paying for a professional to upholster for you. And then I walk the student through the project and they get the free classes. But the student also gets paid 50% of the profit on labor too. So it's paid training for everyone. From their very first project on, it's paid training. So we got the arm done. That's ready to go. The next step is going to be the head right here. So we can flip that around. Can you flip it to the main camera? Excellent. Okay, so the headrest, all the staples are on the back. There's two rows of staples, the fabric that's the front, and then the welt that goes right on top of that. We are going to attempt to remove it all at the same time. I did this to 3 panels already, and let me tell you, it was super duper easy. So we're going to do the same thing that we did to the headrest. We're just going to cut everything free of that row of staples first. That's going to make you feel like you did a lot of work really quickly, but the work part's still there. It also will make you look like you did a lot of work. These this is still attached with a button here, which I can just go through and snip the twine that's holding the button on. And another one. Something else worth noting is that this wood is only 1/4 of an inch thick, which makes it very bendable, which also can make it very breakable. So you should be very careful about how you choose to remove that. The next step is to find the area where the welt overlaps itself, because that's going to be the easiest one to get a hold of first. And then I'm going to cut through the lower layer of fabric underneath there too, so that I can grab these both at the same time. And then I'm going to do that twist method. And this time, it's not 90% of the people. So another way that you might be able to do this, I get nervous about it on these pieces because the wood is so flexible, is that you can just pull it because the wood is so thin. But I'm worried that that's going to actually break the wood because there's going to be a move when I do that. So I'm going to go back to this. And just try not to put any pressure on that wood at all. And this is very easily taking off both layers of material simultaneously. I think the first one will be less than 5 minutes. So this whole chair, about a half hour to strip it. which is a lot less than a wingback chair, which might take you multiple days. There's just not as many staples. This is just a simple wrap and staple chair. And everybody wonders what makes it so expensive to reupholster. Well, that would be the materials. The client is using leather, very expensive leather, on this chair, where it is just vinyl right now. So the materials will be much higher quality than what was on it before. Okay, almost done with this side. And all that came off one very satisfying piece. Now we still got a couple of staples through here that we can remove. Most of them have been lifted so that I can just take my pliers, twist them right out. Are you doing stories?
No.
You should do stories. That'd be fun. Okay. So some of these staples aren't out enough, so I got to go through and lift them. I'm just going to get these ones first. And then after we finish removing all of these staples, we're going to go start applying the foam and batting. Now I've already pre-cut the materials so that we can make this process faster. But if you have any questions about anything thus far, just go ahead and put them in the comments. And I'll try to cover that topic. You can see almost all of the platform comments through here, I think. I don't see any yet. If you're hearing me say this, someone leave a comment just so I can see if it's working. That way I'll be able to answer them when we get it. Otherwise, I can just get the hubs to get live and find out what. Okay, so we still got these strings on here from the buttons. I'm going to do the same bit with that. Pull them on. Pull the staples out. Real gentle with the whip. And then the pokies out, and we can move on to the next step.
Super again.
Oh, because it's on vertical. Interesting. Can you see me now on Instagram?
What?
Can you see me now on Instagram?
Not there yet. Yes.
Just get it in the center of the screen as well.
And that's the thing.
Yeah, he can help with that. I'm actually live right now.
Well,
More. Okay, that's it. Whole thing done. And this is the foam that went on top. And when you're getting ready to replace the foam, make sure you're keeping track, particularly in this project, the Eden's Chair project, of how thick the foam is, because you're going to have to replace that. And that furniture was designed specifically for that thickness of foam. So we have a 2-inch foam on the seat backs, and we have a 3-inch foam on the seats. So that's what we're We've got headrest, backrest, feet, and ottoman right here. And I've kind of got them like in sequential order, exactly what we're going to be doing with them. So the next step, is to get foam and bag. So I'm just going to clean this table off. And here. Okay, so I measured the foam parts already. We're just going to be working on the headrest, backrest, and feet today. I'm going to do this later on. They forgot to pre-cut stuff for it, but it's going to be applied the same exact way. So when we're measuring for foam, in this specific instance, because every project is different, but for this specific project, when we measure for foam, it's going to go on the inside here. It's going to get glued down to it. So I want to measure the inside length and the inside height. And then I'm going to add 2 inches to each one of those measurements because I need enough to stick out the sides so that I can cut it to the specific shape. Now, you could go through and trace this on your foam like this. It's less accurate, more human intervention can cause more mistakes. So we're just going to measure like this and cut it to fit the frame. So here, across, and 27 inches. I'm going to add 2 inches. It's 27 and a half. Let's call it 28. I'm going to add 2 inches to the length so that it's a little bit longer. And then we'll measure the height. So we've got, that'll be at 28, we're adding 2 inches. It'll be 30 inches tall. And then this is about 12 inches high this way. So we're going to make it 14 inches tall. So I've already cut those. That's what this foam is for right here. And the next step is to attach it to the wood substrate. That's what that's called, by the way, substrate. I had to Google that when I first got into business, and someone said it to me because I had no idea what it meant. So we're going to use a special glue to glue this down to the substrate so that it'll stay. And that is the contact adhesive. This is something that I carry on my website by the gallon. We buy it by the gallon because it costs way less than buying the spray can of it. And we just put it in this cheap little Harbor Freight sprayer and keep it in here like it can live in there. And we keep it in this box because it can tip and spill over, so this helps it to stay clean. Now, it's red, so you can see it, so you can have more control over where you spray. And it only sticks to itself, which means you have to spray both sides. You got to spray the foam side and the wood side before you stick it together. That being said, once it touches, it's permanent. So you have to be real careful to make sure that you're lining it up exactly where it needs to go. So I'm going to spray now. Now I don't have to spray all the way out to the very edge. I just have to get like enough coverage that it sticks. But I'm going to not do this on this regular table. We have, oh yeah, perfect, that paper. So, the rest of this off the table. Perfect. Now I have like an area to work with, but I'm not going to make a huge giant mess. So we're going to start off by spraying the wood. This is connected to an air compressor by a hose. So this is driven by air, and it won't spray unless you pull that trigger down all the way. So you want to make sure you're ready, and then you pull the trigger down all the way when you're ready to spray. You can also, on these, you can adjust the width of the spray, the angle of the spray, all of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. don't need a thick coat of this, but you need pretty even coverage. As you can see it, you can really control where it goes by the over. So you can minimize how much of the maximum you're going to make. You want to wait like 20, 30 seconds, sometimes even a whole minute, so that there's no shiny, wet spots, because the whole thing has to be dry. You can see the bottom over here. So a little wet, the sit comes up. Now we're going to do the same thing to the foam. So the foam is suspension. So the cool thing about pneumatic sprayer is it actually uses less glue, so it doesn't have you don't have to like a hammer. Spray set is like $20 now. It used to be like $11, but now it's $20. And this gallon is like $40, I think $40, and it lasts way longer. Whereas like one can, you might be using for the entire. You wait for the temperature to turn on before you do the next part. Without the dust in the air. Perfect. Okay. So now we're ready to apply the foam. Now, if this were a flat piece of wood, I would put the foam down and put the wood on top, because that way I could see it exactly where I needed it to go. But because this is curved, I have to set it this way so I can help the foam to hit that curve without breaking the wood. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold this in half, because I want to center it with the top of this. I also have to make sure that I have a little bit extra at the top and a little bit extra at the bottom. Because once I make contact, so now we've got it set, I'm going to specifically roll this down into this shape. Now, if you have a flat piece, it doesn't have to be like that exact rolling it in, but because this goes on a curve, I want to make sure I roll it into the curve without breaking the wood. Perfect. Now we have this piece with sticking. And we have a little bit excess. I have a little bit more on this side than I do on this side that I can use to be able to go through and cut off the excess. Now, oh, wait, there's one in my pocket. Okay, so the next step is marking the lines where you're going to cut. Now I'm going to do the overhead one for this so you guys can see. Perfect. So I want to trace the outside edge of this wood, but I don't want to trace it right into the wood. I want a little bit extra sticking out, like almost like exactly like this area right here. And so when I trace this, I'm going to trace it so that the side of the pen is what's touching the wood. And that's going to give me about 1/8 of an inch gap from where the sorry, wood and foam are, you can see just a slight gap in between there. And if I'm using this as a guide where the marker is sticking or the marker is dragging alongside the wood, that distance is going to be consistent all the way around. So that's what I want to be aware of. I need just a little bit outside of the edge to protect the fabric from the edge of the wood rubbing up against it when people sit on it. So this is just going to allow it to last a little bit longer. I'm going to go all the way around that. My marker has a little bit of glue on it too, so it's like sticking as I go. Okay, so now we have all of that marked. And the next step is to cut it. And to cut this, I'm going to use an electric bread knife or a turkey carver. These are super cheap, brand new. They're like 20 bucks. But you can probably find one at your local thrift store because everybody buys these and nobody uses them. So they always get donated. I've never seen a time where I couldn't find one of these at a thrift store. And before we start cutting, flip this over. Before we start cutting, we're going to coat the blade with some silicone spray. And that's because we have glue on our foam and we don't want glue on the blade. And for many years, like all of the years except for that last year, I wasn't using silicone spray and I was gumming up my knives and I was going through a lot of these. But the silicone spray, it works really well at keeping things from sticking to it. So I'm going to turn it on and just kind of lightly spray both sides. And now I'm ready to cut. So I can see the mark on this side. You guys will be able to see on the side that I'm cutting from, but I'll do close-ups here in a second. What you're going to want to do is make sure you keep the blade level. If you tip the blade up or you tip it down, you're going to be cutting this on an angle, and we want to cut it straight. So I'm going to do like this top row first, and then we're going to do the sides, and then we're going to do the bottom row. So I'm going to start coming off here. And I'm just following my line and watching my blade, because if I cut down, I'm just going to be chopping this corner off of the front. And if I go up, it's going to be too long in the front. And switch back to overhead. Perfect. And now you guys might be able to see how to do that like on this side. So now I want to keep my blade nice and straight as I go down. It's easier for me to do long straight cuts than it is for me to try and like maneuver this and go on a curve like while I'm trying to cut. So this one doesn't need a ton cut off because we got real close here on the edge, but it does need some. Excellent. I'm going to give this another little spritz because I can feel stuff starting to stick to my blade. Do this side. And the silicone spray really does a lot to help this really glide through your foam. So I'm going to cut the corners on these sides. One more over here. And now I have these beautiful edges. That looks awesome. So the next step is going to be spraying these edges. On the original foam, can you do the main? So on the original one, seat, this was like rounded over. And that's often just like sculpted through the fabric, like holding everything down. And over time, it just holds itself that way and molds itself that way. Sometimes the foam is actually molded. We're going to go through here and we're going to glue these sides so that we can pull these edges down and round off the corners, or edges ourselves. So that's the next step. So now I'm just going to go do a real like thick, heavy layer of this glue all the way around all of the edges. And it's okay if you get a little bit of extra glue on here. We're covering everything up. The glue isn't going to hurt anything. In fact, the glue is made from the same stuff that the foam is made out of. So when you use it to fuse two pieces of foam together, you can't feel it. It's sort of just like it's fusing it together. And this time I do want coverage from edge to edge. If I don't get coverage from edge to edge, it's not going to turn out as well as I'd like. We're going to let that dry for a minute so that there's no wet spots. Don't set it down like that. Out of the, got a, what do you call that? What do you call that hole? Ventilation hole at the top that it will leak out of if you set it down on the side. And that one was clogged. So we can get this out of the way. I have another snake up there that I can spray the edges of, and we can get that chocolate covered in foam too. So we're going to come and do the edges on these ones now. Get that overhead shot. There you go. You got it. Okay, so back to the edges. This one like isn't super perfect. You can see it's a little rugged of an edge, but because of what we're about to do, you're not going to be able to tell that even happened. Okay, now we're waiting for this one to dry. We're going to do the last piece of the to the other center. Get this one out of here. And we hit main shot. casualty of the trick. Again, we're just going to fold it in half. Try better at centering it top to bottom, and then just roll it into the edges so you can get good protection. What I'm looking for, filling in that gap right there. Possibly. Hold on. Oh, I don't display it. Oh, that for this. I'm afraid of what it might do to the Huh?
It's
Yeah. Super long. So got that. Let's take this out of it. Now I'm going to show you the next magic trick. So we want these edges to be rounded. This like 3-inch edge look is not the look. Not what we're going for. So we put this glue around all the edge so that the edge will stick to itself. The next step is to use this regulator to push in the middle of the edge and push these two sides together. And that's going to glue the whole thing together. So I'm going to take my regulator, give it a good coat of silicone spray because that will make it so that this doesn't stick. Then I'm going to go in the middle here and just press those edges together, and the silicone spray allows that tool to slide right out. Now let's get a close up. That's good stuff. No zoom is fine. It's good right there. I'm putting a little bit more spray on. On the regulator, I found I need to use the spray a lot more often. So we're just pushing that down so that it creates this beautiful rounded shape. Look at that. We're just going to do that all the way around. When we can. Get it off of the glue so it doesn't keep sticking to the glue. A little bit more silicone spray. And just make my way completely around. Now, if there's not a ton of glue, you might see areas where it doesn't stick. And honestly, it doesn't matter. Your fabric, your foam, your fabric and your batting are going to hold everything in. But you can go back through with more glue and just glue it. But you just kind of need the gist. More spray. You can go to the main shot now. That's great. I wish I had like a silicone cup. I could just do that. It feels like a waste to just spray it on this thing. Make our way all the way around. And these areas are where there's some spots that the glue isn't touching. Not sticking super good. Now nothing will stick to this glue but itself. So you can like touch it, your fingers aren't gonna stick to it. But if you get glue on your hands and then you touch it, it will rip your skin off. So be very careful not to do that. You'll need to add a little bit more glue in the corner. Is that glue? Oh, okay. So in the areas that didn't stick, we're just going to come back through. Glue that. I want to show you what the rest of it looks like. I'm going to pinch just the spots in between everything to make sure they stick together. And show you now all the edges are rounded right up into the frame. So we just re-glued it, and if the glue does not dry all the way, it will instantly just start to split itself apart again. So we're going to come back at this in a little bit and re-glue that. But for now, this is let's do that suit over there.
What if you sprayed it into a cloth?
Oh, and wipe that. That's a good idea. Crosby just had an idea to conserve silicone spray. I'm just going to spray it in this cloth. And wipe it. Let's see if that works. Yeah, I think so. Nice. Good job, Clark. So we're going to go through this one, and then we're going to just move on to the batting process to get that ready. Now, if you don't have a regulator, pokey thing, probably even a stick from the outdoors would work, as long as you can get it to not stick to that glue. Lots of glue. Well, the cloth trick is not working so great anymore. Just the first time. If I don't put the silicone spray on, this gets stuck inside when I do it, and then it will pull off foam and stuff too. This might need more glue. You can see parts where it's coming off. Well, we're going to come back to that because we don't have a ton of time today. So I want to just move on to the next thing where we're adding the padding. And then getting it ready for fabric. We're going to do fabric next because it's kind of a whole thing. We ordered leather, and leather doesn't come like regular fabric, like on a 54-inch wide bolt by however many yards. Leather is sold by the square foot, by the hide. Each hide has about 50 square feet, so you have to be very strategical about how you cut that pattern. So we're going to do that all in one lesson. Today we're going to get cotton batting on this, poly batting on this. Then we're going to go over and finish work on the wood. So first step, cotton batting. And this, I'm just going to put a layer of this on the top, sort of tear it to the size that I need, which is a little bit bigger than the whole thing is. And then work on applying it exactly how it has to be applied. So I'm going to pull it up and center it so that it's the same on all sides. And then I don't want this batting to wrap around to the back because that's going to leave it real lumpy here on the back and make it so that it doesn't sit flat in the seat. And it has to sit extremely flat in the seat. So we don't want the cotton batting to go underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand here right on the edge. I want the cotton batting to stop right here at the top. So wherever you hold your hand, that's what the batting will pull to. So I'm just going to like keep my hand on that edge all the way around. And pull everything into place. And now it's ready for its last stage before fabric, which is to put the poly back. A lot of times when people will ask me, how do you know when to do one and not the other? For most projects, I use both because I think that the cotton batting provides a level of juiciness to the seat. It's a little bit thicker than poly batting, has some comfort to it. And poly batting actually provides, like it smooths out the cotton batting and it puts a little bit of air between the fabric and the batting. Now this isn't as big as I need it, so I'm going to recut some. And for the purposes of doing that, we're going to take some measurements and then we're going to cut ourselves a piece that fit. I need this. I cut this earlier when I was experimenting before I started and realized that I was going to have to wrap and staple this batting to the back. The pieces that I have are cut just to set on the top, but in order to contain everything, I am going to need to actually wrap and staple it to the back. So I need to cut it. And to do that, I need a ruler. And what I need to do is I need to measure the lengths where it's going to attach to the wood across the top over the foam and batting to the other side. And then I'm going to add 2 inches, and that's going to give me enough material to be able to pull it to the side. Now, new students, I usually tell them to add 4 inches because if you only add just enough, then you're going to be shorting yourself at some point, and then you're going to end up having to cut a whole new panel of material, which is way more expensive than adding 2 additional inches. But I've been doing this for a while, and I feel like I can do that with just a couple of extra inches. So 28 inches is the length. I'm going to make it 30. Ooh, I gotta measure the width too. Same concept. From where it staples on one side to where it staples on the other. 17. I'm gonna go ahead and go 20 inches. So we got 30 inches by 20 inches that we need. And, oh, Chris, I have a piece in here I can use, I think. Let me measure what I got because I cut this for one of the seats. 27, 30. So this is just a little bit bigger than what I need, but I'll be cutting off a lot of it and much of it will go to waste. So I'm going to go ahead and use this piece, set it on top so that there's enough excess material going around to these sides. So the first thing I want to do is staple it in the centers everywhere. center on top, center on the bottom, center over here, center over here. This stretches the material out evenly across, so when you go start plowing it with staples, you know it's not going to move on you. A lot of people start stapling in one spot, staple it in a circle, and what happens is that material twists and you end up with wrinkles where you stop. This is going to stretch it out so you don't end up with wrinkles. So first, we put it back on. For this step, you're going to need a pneumatic stapler. Specifically with this piece of furniture, because the substrate is so thin, it's only 1/4 inch thick, we're going to use the shortest staple that we can use for this level, which is a 1/4 inch staple. That's going to go through the batting and into the wood without blowing through the other side of the wood. We just need more staples. So these go in your gun, pointy side up and close. We're going to start in the center here because this seat goes on a curve. And we need to lock down that curve first. Otherwise, if we pull it straight from side to side, it's going to make this straight on top. And we need it to settle in it. So we're going to start with our center staples at the top and bottom of the width here. And these staples are going to go on an angle every 1/2 inch all the way down. And that's because it covers more surface area and it'll hold this level and flat up against the back of the seat after we trim the excess off. So we got one staple there. And now we're going to stretch this up to the other side, nice and taut like a trampoline. This is why you need extra material to be able to hold it. And then put another staple on the side here. Now, if you're nervous about putting staples in and you're afraid you're acting too soon, you can use what's called a temporary staple. So instead of going flat down like this, you'll just tip that gun a little up to the side and it'll shoot a staple and leave a little tiny gap on the other side. So I've got the center locked in. Now I can do the centers on the long ends. I'm just going to pull this nice and taut until I'm pulling these wrinkles out of it. And then put another center staple. And I'm keeping all of my staples on the inside edge here. I don't need a staple all the way back here. I don't need this batting to be filling up this area. I need it to sit flat when it goes in the seat. So just within the 1/2 inch inside the edge of that frame. Now we got this side we can do in the center. This is called staple mitigation, folks. This is to prevent you from putting too many staples in right away so that you don't find yourself removing them as you work. So we've got 4 staples, and the front of this is nice and taut. So the next staples I'm going to put in the corner to corner, corner to corner. That's going to stretch it out in this direction before I litter it with staples. So here, and directly across from it, down here on the bottom. And you should be checking the front before you put the staple in and make sure you have it pulled exactly the way you want to. Another staple here. And directly across. Another staple here. So now I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 staples holding this whole thing together, and I'm ready to start just drilling it with staples. I'm going to work from the center out. That way, if I have excess material between this staple and this staple, I can just take this one out and remove it and stretch it. But the whole goal is to get this like nice and taut with no wrinkles. So I'm pulling this nice and taut, and now I'm going to put my staples in every 1/2 inch, working from the center out. Can you hit the overhead? Perfect. So from the center, I'm going to work my way out. And now those staples are going every 1/2 inch. See how close they are? And they're at an angle because they're going to hold all this batting down nice and flat so that it doesn't look lumpy on the other side. You should keep these staples as straight as you can, up using the edge of the substrate as your guide. And I am just going the distance that my hand is pulling. So the width of my hand here is pulling from here to about here. So that's all I'm going to staple. And I readjust my grip and I come back in. I'm just working my way all the way around like that. I'm going to go back to the center here, work my way out, and then we're going to do the bottom row in the same exact way. Again, this helps to make sure that the material is stretched out and across evenly so that you don't get wrinkles and so that it doesn't twist or get misplaced as you go. Sometimes you can rob yourself from the bottom by stretching too much on the top, but we've locked it in, anchored it in place already, so we're not doing that. And I like to go through and check the front, make sure the lines are nice and smooth right here. If it's pulled too tight, you might notice it pucker in some areas, so you want to make sure that your tautness is consistent all the way around. Okay, we got the top row done. And we're going to go back in, fill it in. We made it to that edge. We're going to go back to the center, work our way to the other side. And sometime soon, I'm probably going to fade it. Because as you can see, we are putting a lot of staples in. Okay, got the bottom done. Now we can work on the sides, which is a little bit more difficult because it's not super safe to like stand this up. You can go ahead and hit main shot. So now I have to find a delicate way to pull at the sides that's not going to injure the substrate that is very, very thin. So most of the time, even when I'm doing dining room seat, I like to set it up on the edge like this. In this case, I still have to be real gentle because I don't want to push down hard on the substrate and have it crack because they're a lot harder to replace. Meet the other side. Now we're working away from the center side down. And I might use the smoothing motion to make sure that I have all the excess material pulled to that side. Now, if we pulled this and stretched it right around these rounded corners, we won't have seen any folding or pleating in the batting area itself because that can make it really bulky. We don't want those to layer up underneath. This bottom one is more difficult to get to. Now we can go through and cut off all of the excess material. When I say all of the excess material, I mean all of the excess material. Cross, can you hit the overhead? Now you can use fabric scissors for this, but only if there's no glue on the batting. I'm just going to take my scissors, but I'm going to shave this batting right to the bottom of that staple. I don't want any of it sticking out. This is what people usually do, and it leaves a little bit of fluff right there. You will see that fluff under your fabric, so you want to get rid of that fluff if you can. So I'm just going through here, giving it a little bit of a haircut so that you can't see that fluff when you go to upholster it. I don't see any questions like on the chat stream. You don't see any comments either. Almost done. Last little bit. Okay, cross. Main shot. There you go. Perfect. Perfect in every way. Look at the side profile. Look how nice and even and smooth everything is. And on the back, it's still nice and flat. Now, the cool part about this is this is your first practice material that you put on it. The leather that we're putting on here goes on here exactly the same way. So if you got this part right, likely you're going to get the fabric part right. So don't freak out before you even get there. We are officially done with the foam and batting part of these bits today here on the video. I'm going to take the last little bit of time that we have here to go over the staining and the application of polyurethane top coat to the wood parts that we have. So let me get this mess cleared out.
Want the top?
Yeah. And we're going to move this mess in. Now, last time we worked on this project online, we stripped the finish off of all of the wood bits with acetone. Since then, I have gone through and stained and put the first top coat of poly on the other pieces. I left this one so I could kind of walk you guys through what I was doing. So first, we're going to put some gloves on because I don't want to get this stuff on my hands. I use gel stain for almost every project that I use. It doesn't seem to matter what the brand is. This is Varathane. Minwax is fine too. General Finishes is a more expensive brand. I couldn't tell you the difference between them because when you use them the right way, they all make high quality finishes. So I'm going to kind of show you what it is that I do. Gel stain is different than regular stain. If you've ever used a regular stain, it's real liquidy, watery, and all of the pigment settles at the bottom. So when you get ready to use it, you actually have to stir it, mix it really good so the pigment gets mixed into everything. Well, all that is like 90% mineral spirits and a little bit of pigment. Gel stain is all pigment. And it's cool because it's highly saturated, so it makes really saturated color. But it also is really thick and oil-based. So I have found, and anyone who's ever had a problem with gel stain, this is why, when you put it on pure gel stain, it never dries fully, it stays sticky and tacky, it's hard to manage. And so I started mixing it with mineral spirits, cutting it so that it will thin it out, make it easier to apply, help it to dry faster, and make it so that it doesn't stay sticky and tacky. But it can be applied sometimes even just like a paint coat on top of stuff. Gel stain will stain just about anything, even if it has a finish on it, because it is just like a highly saturated pigment. Girls, can you give me like a spoon? So I'm going to start off, and I've got these two little paper cups, by mixing the mineral spirits and the gel stain in a little cup. And I do I don't use them. I want the consistency to be like liquidy, watery, but not necessarily thick, but not necessarily thin either. I don't want it to be like a semi-transparent stain. I want it to be like very saturated color. So I've just done a spoonful of stain right here. Now I'm going to take my mineral spirits, which we have de-child-proofed this by just poking a few holes here, which we just leave so that we can just dump it when we need it. I would say that this is probably a 3-to-1 ratio, gel stain to mineral spirits. Very little mineral spirits, way more gel stain. But I don't like measure it out. I just am like feelings for the consistency. Can you bring the overhead camera closer? And then turn that on. Excellent. So this is like pre-mixed. There's some thickness and there's some wateriness. You want to mix this up really good so that it's all well mixed. This is still a little thick for me. So I'm just going to put a little bit more mineral spirits in. Not much, just a little. Mix it up even more so that it can soak into my sponge, but so that it doesn't actually drip off of the project when I'm putting it on, because I don't want a mess underneath me. I'm gonna put that in there, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. Let me see if I can. Yeah, go ahead and main shot and zoom. Got it right there. So here's the consistency. So it's still kind of thick, like maybe like milk. It's like a milk or maybe a heavy whipping cream consistency. It's creamy. Don't eat it. Not good for you. Okay, so I've got the stain ready and I brought a sponge for application. So I just want the sponge to like soak it up. I don't want any like dripping to happen. I don't want to make a mess. I just want the sponge to soak it up. So I'm just gonna, with the grain, apply it directly to the wood. And you can already tell this goes on a lot thicker than your traditional stain. And this one you don't even have to leave on a super long time either. And you'll notice I didn't mix a ton because it really goes a long way. But this is staying put, like it's not dripping off. So I'm just gonna go through, cover the whole thing and let it sit for a minute. While I let it sit, I'll babble on about what it is that we do here. I also don't want to see like brush strokes, because if you leave them there, they will stain like that. So I always go back over everything with the sponge in the direction of the grain and make sure that I smooth everything out. Now this serves less like a stain and more like a toner. This is a walnut veneer already, so it is the color that it is supposed to be. And with a top coat, it can look really nice all on its own. But it's also been faded by the sun and has like some, scuffs and things like that. So I want to go through with this gel stain and sort of tone it so that it brings all of the colors, that it sort of just like blends them all together. Now, if you're watching this on social media, you may have some scenes that are cut weird, because if I'm not directly in the center of the frame, it looks a little bit different. Push it. I'm trying to put myself in the center. Last little bit here. Now I'm just gonna go through and make sure all these lines are straight and that there's no like thick spots. This doesn't have to sit a terribly long time because the color is more saturated than your standard stain. So it doesn't have to like sit there and soak in. Plus it's already walnut. Excellent. So that covered for now. We can get this out of the way. If you have stain left in your cup, you're going to want to let that sit and dry out. Put it on a metal surface or glass surface or ceramic surface or a cement surface because that shit can spontaneously combust. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so now we have that part. Now while we wait for that a minute, I'm just going to kind of go over what it is that we do here. My name is Kim. I'm with Loco Design Studio. This is my studio. 6,200 square feet of studio space that is open to the public 7 days a week. You can come and work here every day. You can get hands-on support every day. You can bring your friend free to most classes and retreats. We try to make it as accessible as possible. I teach classes, bring your own project classes every day that you can attend either here in person or you can attend live over Zoom. Right now, you can get a free class when you go to register for a class if you use code FIRSTClassFree2026. That'll give you your first class free. I also have a code for when you do the subscription classes. The Zoom subscription is $5 a month. You can get your first month free by entering first month free 2026 at checkout. That'll give you those classes for free. I teach weekend retreats that are all inclusive. It's 5 days, 4 nights. It includes your stay, your meals, your materials, everything you need to put your project together. The all-inclusive version is bring a friend free. We have a light version, which includes your meals and materials. It's only 3 days. It's bring 2 friends free, but it doesn't include your stay. Luckily for you, we have hotels surrounding this place because we're right off the expressway. Boy, I finally see some comments. We're so genius. We're spellbound watching. What a really kind thing to say. Thank you so much. Chocolate syrup. No, Terry, don't eat it. It's not edible. Okay, so I think we're ready now, and I can tell because this looks like it's starting to dry, and I want to get to it before it dries. I'm using a lint-free cloth. This is just like a microfiber cloth to go through and just wipe everything off. And it leaves behind the beautiful color with none of the tackiness. Look at that. You want to do a close-up? I have to move that camera into place. Now, some of this, like you can see some of the streaks here. I'm going to try and wipe it off like this. But if it's already started to dry, it might make it sticky and shiny. In which case, I'm going to go through, I'm going to put a little bit of mineral spirits on my rag. So it'll go through and wipe off any of the high, like, sticky spots. And very frequently, I will like turn my rag inside out so that I can go back over and remove any excess parts like this. And sort of just clean it until no stuff comes off. Excellent. I'm going to try adding just a teeny tiny bit of mineral spirits to my rag. I don't want to add too much because you can actually take it off that way. And go back through, make sure I get off any of the excess, and it'll thin out what's there and sort of like reconstitute it everywhere. Now, sometimes you put the mineral spirits on your rag and it will take your stain completely off. Don't do that. This is a little bit harder to tell though because it is walnut already. So it already has a color to it. And now that part is done. Now you have to wait at least 24 hours before you go through and do your top coat, but luckily for you, I have already started that process with some of these parts. So that's what we're gonna do next. All done with this. In 24 hours, we're gonna come back to this and put the top coat on, but for now, we're just gonna get it out of the way. And we're going to mix up the polyurethane coat. So there's wipe on poly, and then there's cans of polyurethane. I think this is just Minwax. Polyurethane is, in and of itself is pretty thick, but when you put it on, you can see brush strokes. A lot of people tend to put it on a little heavy the first time they do it, so they have to do less coats. You don't want to do that. I prefer wipe on poly, but just like with the gel stain, wipe on poly is just polyurethane mixed with mineral spirits. So when you pay that extra $10 for a wipe on poly can, you've diluted the polyurethane itself, and all you're paying for is mostly mineral spirits. So we're going to make our own wipe on poly using polyurethane and some mineral spirits. I need another spoon. Thank you very much. This was already partway open. I'm not that strong. So first, I want to mix up the polyurethane. Because it is like several chemicals mixed together, it does settle to the bottom. You want to make sure you mix that up. You don't want to mix too vigorously. Here's what it looks like. Do that overhead camera real quick. That's the bottom sentiment. And that's the top. And this polyurethane itself probably also has a lot of mineral spirits in it. But that stuff at the bottom, that's the polyurethane. That's the part you want mixed in. So if you mix it too vigorously, you're going to get a lot of bubbles. And those bubbles are going to leave imperfections in your finish. So you just want to give a slow stir until that polyurethane is fully mixed and you're not getting any thickness when you lift up your spoon. Like you should be able to scrape the bottom and not see any of that thick residue, because that's the good stuff. That's the stuff you want to make your finish. Now at this stage, I could probably just put more polyurethane in here and just like have it be a permanent wipe on poly, but I'm just going to mix what I need for now. Pretty good. We still got a little bit at the bottom there. Yes, Marianne, the color of that stain did turn out real nice. I still got some on the sides. I'm going to tip this around a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to pour a little bit of this inside the cup. And this ratio is more of like a 20% mineral spirits to 80% polyurethane. We don't need a lot of mineral spirits. We just need it thin. So I'm going to take my mineral spirits. The thinner it is, the more coats that you're going to need, which isn't necessarily bad, because the cool thing about putting mineral spirits in your poly to make it a wipe on poly is that it's self-leveling, which means you don't get streaks no matter what you apply it with. We're going to apply ours with a hand towel. Oop, I got a little bit of schmutz in there. Let's get that out of there. So I just want to mix it real good after I get the polyurethane and the mineral spirits together. And then I'm ready for application. So I have the one piece that has no poly on it, but the rest of these do have a poly on it already. And so we're going to start with this one. This has got one coat of polyurethane on it already. You can somewhat see some streaking down here. like at the end, but that's probably just because it's like thinner in spots and thicker in some other spots. The more coats you put on here, the more even it's going to become, especially if you're using the wipe on method. So I'm going to use my microfiber cloth here. Oh, I need my stand. I brought a piece out. And right here, so you have to go around and stuff.
No worries. It's coming along great.
What's that?
Looks like it's coming along great.
Oh, yeah. I brought one out.
Yeah.
So in between coats, you want to like buff this and sand it down. I find that sandpaper is way too aggressive. I like to use sanding sponge, but I have this. So this is a 3M sanding sponge. You can get this at your local hardware store. This is not aggressive enough to take off the finish completely, but it is aggressive enough to dull the existing finish and to knock off any dust particles. If you research how to do woodworking, it's going to say put yourself in a dust-free environment and blah, 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 blah. There's no such thing unless you like buy all the expensive equipment to suck the dust out of the air. We don't have that around these parts. So what I'm going to do is just like wipe it like I'm washing the dishes with the grain all across the surface. And I just want to dull up the existing finish and make sure that there's no like dust particles still stuck. So you'll notice that is significantly duller. And you can even go through and make sure it's evenly dull. Like if there's some shinier spots, you might have to go over that a little bit more. And then wipe it clean so there's no dust. The next step is the application of the wipe on poly itself. So I fold this up so that I can use the folded soft sides. The edges of the fold tend to be like harder. I tend to like pull those, tuck them inside so they don't drag on my finish, and just dip the soft side into my polyurethane. Sometimes if you have a big surface, like a table, you can just dump it right on top. And then I'm just going to very gently wipe in strokes with the grain. And I'll probably do 3 or 4 coats of this polyurethane finish before I'm done. And then the last thing that I do is put a top coat of wax on top of that. That will fill in like any of the recesses of the grain and make it silky smooth. And it also make it so that you yourself can go through and like 10, 15 years after cleaning it and just put some more wax on it. You don't have to get it refinished necessarily. It's just going to protect it a little bit. So you don't want it to be dripping. This goes on kind of like lotion. You're just like moisturizing the surface. And it shouldn't be sticky. It should go real smooth, almost like an oil. And you can like get it all over it and then go back over it once you've spread it everywhere and wipe again or with the grain so that there's no streaks in it. So now I'm going to go back through starting on this side and very slowly and just kind of grazing the top. I didn't put any additional polyurethane on this, and just smooth out that finish all the way to the other side, making sure that you can't see any streaks. And sometimes your cloth will leave streaks behind that you didn't want to see. And you might have to go back over. If you get dust in it or hair at this stage, don't freak out. You're using a wipe-on poly. It's super thin. When you go back through to buff it, sand it before you put the next coat on, all that stuff's going to come out. So that is that for these bits. Go ahead and flip that around, cross. Perfect. And then we have this. Nice and even all the way across. This is coat 1 on this side, but the rest of these already have 1 coat on them. So we're just going to be building up those coats till we get about 4 coats on them. And then we'll put the wax finish on it. So next class, we'll be doing the fabric, and then we'll be doing the last bits of top coat and wax finish on the wood, which means by the next class, we should be done with this project, which means this is the project that I got finished in 6 hours because we're only here for 2 hours every class. So this is a project that can be done very quickly. If you spend a day on doing it, you can get it done start to finish. Well, maybe not in a day. You'll have to be putting your top coat on the next day. So 2 days. You'll be working on this for 2 days. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. I'm going to wrap this up now because we are done for the day. I'm going to off camera finish putting batting on the other pieces and getting those ready for the next class. And the next class, we're going to roll out the leather. We're going to investigate where we need to put our patterns. We're going to cut it. We're going to sew the welt, and we're going to apply everything to the pieces that we just did today. So if you have nothing better to do and you want to learn a little bit about it, join me here on Tuesdays from noon to 2, and I'll show you everything I know. My name is Kim. I'm with Lowco. My design studio is open to the public 7 days a week. You can take classes here or you can take classes over Zoom. I highly encourage you to learn how to do this. There's a lot of really good money in doing upholstery, and we're running out of skilled tradespeople to do it. There are less than 30,000 upholsterers in all of the United States as we speak. The majority of them are between the ages of 55 and 65, and 22,000 of them are expected to retire in the next 10 years. So it's the Wild West. There's plenty of clients out here, tons of success for everyone. If you can't pay for the $100 classes or the weekend retreats, join my Zoom classes for $5 a month. We meet twice a week for 2 hours each day, and that's just enough time for you to sort of get your feet wet and start learning how to do this until you can start building up more stamina and more skill and learning how to do this for money. I'll go over everything in class, not just the upholstery aspects, but if you want to learn about the business end of it too, we can talk at length about that. But that is it for me today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you being here. Join me next Tuesday and we'll finish this chair up. We'll see ya. To get a different screen that says that. So now they can't